My friends, let me tell you something very simple but very powerful. Sometimes it is not the long speeches that make history. It is not the big paragraphs, the complicated arguments, or the endless debates. Sometimes it is just one single word. One word that cuts through all the noise. One word that shakes people awake. One word that leaves an entire nation thinking. That is the power of language, and that is what happened when Jai Shankar stood on that stage. He didn't need a book. He didn't need 1,000 explanations. He dropped one word, and America felt it. Now why is that? Because one word, when spoken with confidence, carries more strength than 100 sentences spoken with doubt. One word can carry the history of a nation, the pride of a culture, and the unshakable identity of a people. Think about it. Every revolution in history started with one word. Freedom, justice, independence. One word and people gave their lives for it. One word and entire empires trembled. And this is the lesson we sometimes forget. We live in a world where people talk too much. Politicians go on and on. Leaders keep repeating themselves. Social media is flooded with words, most of them empty, most of them weak. But when someone knows exactly what they stand for, when someone has clarity in their heart and courage in their voice, they don't need 1,000 words. They just need one. And when they release it, it lands like thunder. Jai Shankar understood this. He knew that if he wanted to make America stop, to make the whole world listen, he didn't have to argue. He didn't have to beg, he didn't have to explain endlessly. He needed one word that represented strength, one word that reminded everyone who India is, one word that nobody could ignore. And that is why America was shaken. Because deep down they understood this was not just a word, it was a declaration. It was not an opinion, it was a fact. This is something every single one of us can learn from. In our own lives, how often do we talk too much, trying to convince others, to defend ourselves, trying to explain who we are? But you don't need to explain everything. You don't need to beg people to respect you. You don't need to justify yourself. You need to find your one word. The one word that shows your values, your strength, your direction. And when you speak it with conviction, people will listen. People will stop doubting you. People will feel your presence. That's why leaders are remembered not for their long speeches, but for the one word or one line that became their legacy. And that is why America, with all its power, with all its influence, had to pause when Jai Shankar spoke. Because one word spoken at the right time, with the right energy, can change the balance in the room. It can demand respect without asking for it. It can make people see you differently, not because you begged them to, but because you showed them the truth in a single breath. And so, the question is not what Jai Shankar said, the question is what is your one word? Let me take you deeper into this moment. Because words only matter when you understand the stage they are spoken on. You see, context is everything. If you say something powerful in an empty room, it might feel good, but it doesn't shake the world. When Jai Shankar spoke, he was not just speaking to an audience, he was speaking to America, to its leaders, to its thinkers, to its people watching closely. And the room was heavy with expectation. Everyone wanted to hear what India would say, how India would respond, how India would carry itself in that moment. This wasn't a casual conversation, this was a test of strength, a test of confidence, a test of identity. And America is not easy to impress. Let's be honest about that. America is used to being the loudest voice in the room. America is used to asking the questions, setting the agenda, shaping the narrative. So when Jai Shankar walked in, they expected the usual. They expected long explanations, soft answers, maybe even excuses. But he didn't give them that. He gave them one word that was like a lightning bolt across the room. Suddenly the air shifted, and you could see it in their eyes. They were not expecting it. They were not ready for it. But they felt it. Why did it matter so much in that exact context? Because America, for decades, has been used to having the upper hand in global conversations. They have been the ones framing the questions, deciding the terms, leading the dialogue. And here comes Jai Shankar, representing a rising India, looking them straight in the eye and answering not with submission, not with hesitation, not with clarity. One word, and that word told the whole story. We are not here to be told who we are. We are not here to be defined by you. We are here to stand equal. That is what shook them. Because in that moment, they realized that the old way of speaking to India was over. They realized they were not dealing with the India of yesterday. The one that would bend, the one that would justify, the one that would quietly accept. No, they were dealing with an India that had found its voice, an India that had found its confidence, an India that would not shrink under pressure. And all of that was captured in one word. You see, when the setting is tense, when the world is watching, when your opponent expects you to stumble, that is when a single word has the most power. Because it is not just the word itself, it is the silence after. The silence where everyone in the room has to process what just happened. That is the silence of respect. That is the silence of shock. That is the silence where people realize things have changed. And that is exactly what happened in America that day. Now think about your own life. There will be moments when you are put on the spot. People will test you. They will try to corner you, to make you doubt yourself, to push you into explaining or apologizing. And in those moments, it is not about how much you say. It is about saying the right thing, at the right time, with the right conviction. That is how you shift the balance. That is how you make even your strongest critics pause. That is how you earn respect without asking for it. And that is why context matters. Because a word in the wrong place is just noise, but a word in the right place is history. What made that one word so powerful, my friends, was not only the timing or the setting, but the confidence behind it. Because confidence is not just about how loud you speak. It is about how deeply you believe in what you are saying. Jai Shankar didn't speak that word like a man trying to prove a point. He spoke it like a man who already knew the truth, who carried the weight of 1 billion people in his voice, who had nothing to hide and nothing to apologize for. That kind of confidence doesn't come overnight. It comes from knowing exactly who you are, where you come from, and what you stand for. And this is something the world often underestimates. When a nation has struggled, when it has risen from poverty, when it has faced invasions, setbacks, and humiliation, there is always a moment when it decides, no more. That moment creates confidence. India has reached that stage, and Jai Shankar's one word reflected it. It wasn't arrogance, it wasn't aggression. It was dignity. It was sovereignty. It was the strength of a people who are finally standing tall and refusing to bow. That is what shocked America. Because America is used to strength, yes, but they are not used to seeing it come so calmly, so directly, so unshakably from a country that for years they thought of differently. Suddenly, India was not asking to be accepted. India was declaring itself. That confidence and identity is unstoppable. And it makes the world listen whether they want to or not. Now let's bring this back to you. How often in life do we struggle because we are unsure of who we are? We try to impress people. We try to fit in. We try to bend so others won't reject us. But the truth is, respect only comes when you stop chasing it. Respect comes when you own your identity, when you carry yourself with the calm assurance that you don't need permission to exist, you don't need validation to matter. That is when people start treating you differently. That is when your presence commands attention. Confidence in identity is not about shouting. It is not about fighting. It is about knowing. When you know who you are, you can walk into any room, face any person, answer any question. And even if you say only one word, it carries weight. People can feel it. Because they are not just hearing your voice, they are feeling your conviction. And conviction is what shakes the world. Jai Shankar's one word was not just a statement. It was a mirror. It forced America to see India differently. It forced them to realize that here was a nation that would no longer be spoken down to, no longer be pushed into a corner, no longer be treated as less. And when you have that level of confidence in yourself, others have no choice but to adjust. They may resist it at first, they may not like it, but deep down, they know they cannot ignore it. And that is the lesson for all of us. If you want to be heard, if you want to make people respect you, don't try to copy others. Don't try to beg for their approval. Find your identity, own it, and speak from it with absolute certainty. Because when you do, even one word can change how the world sees you. That is why confidence in your identity is the foundation of true power. Do you want me to move forward and expand key point 4 in the same motivational speech style? When Jai Shankar spoke that one word, it wasn't just about showing confidence, it was about doing something even bigger. Challenging the narrative. Because let me tell you, my friends, the world is not shaped only by armies or economies. It is shaped by stories, by narratives, by the way events are told and retold until people start believing them as the only truth. For years, America has been the master of building these narratives. They decide what is right, what is wrong, who is strong, who is weak, who deserves respect, and who should be lectured. And most countries, afraid of going against that flow, simply nod along. But Jai Shankar refused to do that. With one word, he broke the rhythm. He took the pen back into his own hand and reminded America that India would write its own story. That's why it shook them. Because it is not just about disagreeing, it is about disrupting the script. Imagine a movie where you already know how the scene is supposed to go. The hero says this, the villain reacts that way. Everything is predictable. Now imagine someone walks onto the set and delivers a different line that nobody expected. Suddenly the whole movie changes. That is what Jai Shankar did. He tore up the script that America thought it controlled, and he replaced it with one that carried the authority of India's truth. And this is the key lesson: narratives are powerful weapons. They can trap you without chains. They can make you doubt yourself without ever raising a hand against you. When the world tells you the same story again and again, about your country, about your people, about yourself, you can start to believe it, even if it is not true. That is why you must learn to challenge it. You must have the courage to say, no, this is not who we are. This is not the story we will accept. This is not the truth. Think about your own life. How many times have people tried to define you? They say you're not smart enough, not strong enough, not capable enough. They try to put you in a box, and if you're not careful, you start to live inside that box, believing their narrative. But when you stand up and break it, when you challenge their assumptions, you shift everything. Suddenly the people who thought they knew you are forced to rethink. That is the power of breaking a narrative. It doesn't just change their story about you, it changes how you see yourself. Jai Shankar showed that strength on a global stage. By refusing to accept America's assumptions, he reminded the world that India is not a follower, not a background character in someone else's play. India is a force with its own voice, its own destiny, and its own vision. And that is why one word was enough to cause a shockwave, because it challenged the world's habit of speaking about India instead of listening to India. And this is what true leadership is all about. It is not about following the path others have carved for you. It is about drawing your own map. It is about rejecting the definitions others impose on you and writing your own definition with clarity and courage. Because once you change the narrative, you change the balance of power. That is why that one word shook America. It reminded them that the story had changed. Leadership is not just about making policies or signing agreements. It is not only about strategies, statistics, and plans. Real leadership lies in the ability to move people with words. Because words are the bridge between a leader's vision and the people's understanding. Words create belief. Words spark courage. Words shape the future. And the greatest leaders in history are remembered not just for what they did, but for what they said and how they said it. One word, one sentence, one moment of clarity that can echo across generations. This is exactly what Jai Shankar demonstrated. He didn't come into that room to drown people in data, to overwhelm them with complicated details, or to deliver endless explanations. He came in with clarity. He came in with conviction. And when he spoke, it wasn't just the sound of his voice, it was the weight behind it. That is the difference between talking and leading. Anyone can talk, but not everyone can lead with their words. You see, words backed by courage are unstoppable. They are not just sentences, they are signals. They tell people where you stand, what you will tolerate, and what you will never allow. When a leader speaks like that, even their opponents listen, because deep down they recognize strength. They may not agree, they may not like it, but they cannot ignore it. That is the mark of leadership. And here is the truth: leadership through language is not about using big, complicated vocabulary. It is not about trying to sound intelligent or polished. It is about simplicity, honesty, and power. When you strip away the unnecessary, when you speak straight from the core of who you are, people connect. They feel it. They trust it. That is why one word from Jai Shankar carried impact. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't long, but it was true. And truth, when spoken with courage, has a sound that cannot be denied. Think about your own life. Every single one of you has moments when people look to you for direction. Your family, your friends, your colleagues. In those moments, you are the leader, whether you realize it or not. And what you say matters. If you hesitate, if you doubt yourself, your words fall flat. But if you speak with clarity, if you speak with confidence, if you speak from conviction, people feel safe to follow you. That is why leadership starts with mastering your voice. The greatest mistake people make is thinking they need to say a lot to sound powerful. No, power is not in the quantity of words, it is in the quality. When you speak less, but you mean more, people lean in, they pay attention, they remember. And the reason America was shaken by that one word was because it was not padded with weakness. It was not surrounded by excuses. It stood alone like a pillar. That is leadership. So, never underestimate the responsibility that comes with your words. Every time you speak, you are shaping how people see you. You are shaping how they see themselves. You are shaping what they believe is possible. That is why words matter more than we sometimes realize. They can break spirits, but they can also build nations. They can destroy trust, but they can also unite people. They can start wars, but they can also create peace. And when a leader uses them wisely, they leave behind a legacy that no one can erase. That is the power of leadership through language. One word can change everything. My friends, after everything we've seen in this moment, after understanding the power of one word, the confidence behind it, the way it challenged the narrative and displayed true leadership, we have to ask ourselves, what does this mean for us? Because it's not enough to admire it, it's not enough to clap for it, it's not enough to talk about it. The real question is, how do we bring that power into our lives? What can we learn from it? The truth is, every single one of us has a word inside us. A word that defines who we are, a word that represents our values, our vision, our strength. But too often we bury it. We let fear silence it. We let doubt weaken it. We let the voices of other people drown it out until we forget it's even there. And that is why so many people live lives of hesitation, lives of compromise, lives where they are always waiting for someone else to give them permission to speak. But the lesson is clear. You don't wait for permission. You don't wait for validation. You find your one word and you stand on it, no matter what. Imagine what would happen if you lived every single day with that clarity. If your word was courage, you would stop running from challenges. If your word was discipline, you would stop making excuses. If your word was freedom, you would stop letting others control your decisions. If your word was respect, you would stop tolerating disrespect from anyone. That is the power of choosing your word. It gives you a compass. It gives you a foundation. It gives you something no one can take away because it lives inside you. And let me tell you something. When you speak that word with conviction, people will feel it. Just like America felt it from Shwarzenegger. You don't have to shout it. You don't have to argue. You don't have to explain yourself over and over. When you believe in your word, when you embody it with your actions, it speaks louder than any speech you could ever give. People will recognize it. They will respect it. Even your critics will be forced to pause, because deep down they will know they are facing truth, not noise. But here's the catch: you cannot just say your word, you must live it. If your word is strength, then you show strength in how you work, how you think, how you face obstacles. If your word is honor, then every decision you make must reflect honor. If your word is growth, then you cannot stay comfortable. You must keep pushing yourself forward. That's how your word becomes more than a sound. That's how it becomes your identity. And when that happens, you stop being ordinary. You stop blending in. You become a force, just like Shwarzenegger did in that moment. Because the truth is, we all have the ability to shake the world in our own way. We all have the ability to shift the room with just one word, if it is backed by conviction, clarity, and courage. And when we find it, when we live it, when we speak it, we don't just change how people see us, we change how we see ourselves. So remember this: your future will not be built by 1,000 empty words, but by the one word that truly defines you.